So the themes that came to mind even a couple months ago as Gordon was asking us, what do you think we need to talk about at this session? I thought Zen in a mess, Zen in a bunch of suffering, Zen on a Zoom screen. And then he and Ken go, those sound like good titles, go ahead. So here we are. You know, here we've discovered, this is our third Keishin, right? We've discovered all year, we're discovering all year how to train in this medium, how to work with this. And it really reminds me, you know, right now we feel like this is thin. This isn't the spring green experience. It's not what Mifflin Street's going to become. You know, it's not when we're all sweating together, you know, and pushing each other and holding each other as we reach our limits, right? And yet, we're discovering how to use this form. We're discovering, in a way, new forms of training that come with the technology and the necessity of our times. I think back to when I was in graduate school and so-called online gaming first came out. And this is what it looked like in the early days. Okay, these are very early days. There was a little rattly, almost like teletype machine on the 4th floor of the physics building that we would go up to. And it was this primal version of like Dungeons and Dragons. And you'd put in some command like, open the door. And then it would wait. You'd type it in, you know, you'd hit enter, you'd wait, and you'd wait, and you'd wait. And then about a minute later, the machine would rattle to life and out would print out a line of text that you could barely read because no one had changed the ribbon on this machine for a long time. But it said something like, there is a dwarf in front of you. And then you type in some action like pick up the axe, you know, or whatever. This is how it was played. Now gaming is an Olympic sport. That's happened within just a few decades. It's an Olympic sport. Because people who loved gaming figured out how to use that technology and use the technology that's emerged to make it three-dimensional, to make it even more interactive, to make it faster, to make it more salient. And we will discover those things too, because we love this practice. And while we'll still train together when that's possible, we'll still want to put our bodies in a room, train together. I wonder if this form of training isn't going to become the new normal for most of us most of the time. Because even in the old days, I only went to a sesshin 4 to 6 times a year. The rest of the time I was on my own, right? Just like you. We hold 4 sesshin a year and we say at the end of sesshin, you know, maintain this condition. I used to get so mad at Hosokawa Roshi for saying maintain this condition because I think I try and I try and I try, but it's very hard to maintain a sesshin condition when you go back to non-sesshin conditions. And I took him up on it one time. I said, you always say this, and I have so much trouble with it. And he goes, I know, but you still have to try. You still have to try. Well, here we are, being able, thanks to the virtual dojo, being able to train every day together. Here we are discovering from the dojo as one, this effort that Gordon has shepherded, that Adrian and Chris have been a big part of, to really look at how training can be in our everyday. How we can, in some ways, become our own jiki. How we can be that kind of gentle tough with ourselves. Gentle in the sense that we have to work with the realities of our condition, and tough in the sense that we always want to push the envelope. So here we are on a Zoom screen with a Zen technology of resolving life and death. You know, ours is a technology to transcend all dualism, resolve life and death, the kind of dualism that holds us in its grip in ways that make our life too small, too self-focused, too self-serving. How can we use this? There are a lot of ways to use it and a lot of intentions or energy that we can bring to it, as Rebecca and I were saying at the opening. I think back to a comment Gordon made some months ago when we were sitting one morning, and he got a little exasperated because he could feel that we were sitting like passengers on a train. And he was sitting like he was hanging out on the cow catcher, like right at the front of it, seeing disaster ahead. And we were like, la, 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 or whatever, you know. Maybe not all of us, but you know what I'm saying. There's a real difference between being on the front of the train and being a passenger. A difference in intensity. I was recently reading a book called Radical Dharma, something I recommend. It's some wise people having talks all over the country about racism, about love, about liberation. That's the subtitle of the book, in fact. But one of the lines that stood out to me as they were describing their kind of Zen training, or the kind of Zen training in the dojo of one of the authors, Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams. One of the people described training in that dojo this way. In order to embody the practice of sitting in meditation as if I were on the edge of a battlefield, awaiting my cue to combat, rather than atop a mountain in the clouds, I had to come to see what all I feared to face in my practice and in myself. Sitting as if I'm on the sidelines of a battle, ready to enter combat in any moment, is very different than sitting in the mountaintops, right? And to sit with that kind of intensity, I have to be willing to face all what I fear in myself and my practice. Another line in the book also stood out for me, which was, if it's liberation you're after and you're not experiencing discomfort, liberation is not where you're headed. Right? Right? Because comfort is like a zone that can be like in my own experience, can feel like a prison cell when you won't get out of it. Right? When you won't get out of it. To make ourselves willingly uncomfortable is to start to create a part of ourselves that's prying open the bars or blasting them open or blowing the roof off. And that's not comfortable. And yet, it's freeing. We don't transcend a self. We don't see through a self who gets its way all the time. I mean, think about it, right? One more line from Radical Dharma that really struck me and speaks to a larger picture in which we sit in this mess and with this Zoom screen, is this: without inner change, there can be no outer change. Without collective change, no change matters. You know, it reminds me of a story that Everett told me years ago when he was out at Chozen-ji and he was doing some work, and Tanoi Roshi says to him, you know what Amori Sogen said the purpose of Zen training was? And Everett's thinking like, oh no, one of those trick questions. I'm never going to get the answer right. Whatever I say is going to be wrong. So he didn't know what to say. So he's, hemina, right? And Tanoi said, yeah, to create leaders. to create leaders, to create people who do the inner work for the inner change so there can be outer change. And that's what we support one another in. That's what we're supporting. We're creating a vessel using the technology of our time to support one another in, to do the inner alchemy that the outer transformation is possible. So, a few pointers I would offer for how to sit with a Zoom screen, since we're starting this journey of several days together in front of it, is first, don't stare at it directly. I mean, maybe you're looking at it now because it's a lecture or Tay show, but even now, I would say use 180-degree vision. Even now, I'd say relax your eyes. And certainly when we're doing Zazen, let your gaze drop beneath the screen. So position your screen more high enough so that you're not having to look right at it. There's just a lot of eye fatigue that settles in. So this is just this is one of those be gentle with yourself. Work with the physiological condition. Another thing I have found, because I'm on Zoom a lot these days, as I'm sure many of us are, is just simple eye massages periodically are really useful. Rubbing your hands together. Try this. Rub your hands together. Get them good and warm. And then just take the fingertips, touch the top part of the eye, and just gently press down, the bottom part up, the inside part out, the outside part in. Rub your hands again. And take the palm part, or the down by the thumb, and just place on the eyes. So there's a gentle tip. Work your eye fatigue so that you can really engage fully for this brief time we're together. Feel the room and the space that we create together beyond, I want to say, space and time. In one respect, you know my love of energy and and resonance, and one of the things I'm struck by in this format is how much more aware we are of energy, of action at a distance. You know, when we're in a room together, it's very physical and present and three-dimensional, and you can count on your fingertips, and you're really, everything's like right there. In this environment, it's action at a distance. How do I feel Dennis from this distance? How do I sense Justin? How does Heather sense Dave? How does Jicky sense the condition of the room? We have to tune into the energy of the whole condition we're creating and pour our own energy into it. Another tip on sitting with a Zoom screen is establish your base, let your breathing penetrate all the way down, and expand the entire space that embraces all of us. All of us, all the way to Europe, and the folks listening to, sitting with us, even though you don't see them on the screen right now, they're still with us. All the people who would like to be with us, but couldn't get here right now. Sit with all of them too. Expand into this space. And then feel your entire body all at once, expanding into the space that connects us all at once. In some ways, we have to be our own Jiki, as I said, in this environment. I think about those temple guardians, that are positioned outside a temple, and we say, oh, they keep the evil spirits away. as if evil spirits are, are just flying in the air. Oh yeah, they're going to keep them away at the gate of the temple. But that is, in my view, an allegory, a metaphor for you and me. What keeps our evil spirits away? What keeps our depression away? What keeps our despair away? What keeps our I want to give up away? What cuts through our chattery mind? Me, those are the evil spirits. Where's the Jikki whose sword just goes, bah! Shut up. Focus. Be here now. A loving Jikki would do that for us if we were all together. We have to do it for ourselves. We have to do it for ourselves. So you have to be your own temple guardian. And yet, when you get the hang of it, pretty darn handy, isn't it? Pretty handy for the rest of life. Rebecca said, Jikki, in her Jikki comments at the opening, we're not just sitting in a bunch of box of squares. And I've been, again, playing with this idea of energy and action at a distance a lot this year, as you know, in my writing and work on resonance. And one thing has sort of led to another in that regard. Many of you who have come through Zen Leader programs know that we have used the work of Joe Dispenza and the HeartMath Institute and their work around coherence in the mind and body in some of our work in Zen Leader 3. This idea that if you combine a clear intent of the head with positive emotion and stabilize it with breath that's slowing down, so you can hit this 0.1 hertz frequency where the heart and the brain cohere. And this is all very measurable. We're not talking an abstract or theory here. This is a foundational understanding that is now a part of our technology for meditation, of how to bring coherence into the vibrations of the human body. Now, the HeartMath people are not all about hara. In fact, when I talk with their head of research about hara, I feel he's sort of dismissive about it because, they've got their brand. It's HeartMath. It's not HaraMath, But he also said that he knows that when they measured people who trained in Zen and in this deep kind of breathing that we do, that they also established this kind of coherence in the body naturally, he called it, naturally. Well, in my view, what he also said is when you breathe 2 to 3 times a minute, you're hitting a harmonic of this 1 hertz frequency. You're hitting the harmonic that helps everything stabilize. Whether that helps you or not, I don't know. I know I find it helpful to settle into a way where I can feel my whole system add up. Quit fighting with itself, just kind of get on the same inner wavelength, so to speak. What effect does that have? Well, that's what the HeartMath people and Dispenza and those folks, in fact, there's a whole what's called Global Coherence Project. Global Coherence Project, which is looking at how people who establish this coherence within can create outer change. How it is measurable from a synchrony point of view, and there are actually measures of magnetic fields stationed around the planet that detect shifts in the magnetic field. And this whole project, the Global Coherence Pulse Project that I have been learning about from with the Institute for Noetic Sciences and the HeartMath Institute and a lot of groups that have come together to try to create meditators who, by working together, establish a coherence that helps our world through a crazy time, that can pull the system to a greater state of coherence globally. Now, I just mentioned this to suggest that what we're doing is not confined to just a bunch of boxes on a screen. What is our effect in the world? I don't know. I don't know. Can we heal the heart of someone? Can we stop the march of authoritarianism? Can we spread love in Wisconsin, in the country, in all countries, in the world? Will people who vibrate with us hear our signal, find us, and come train? I don't know with certainty any of those outcomes. And yet, this is how giving works. This is how giving works. If at its best, there's no one giving, no one receiving, right? If you only give, understanding you're going to get some particular outcome, that's called a transaction. That's not giving. That's not charity. That's not just putting it out there. That's a transaction. What we do know is that our best sitting efforts change us and change us collectively. And we do know that the quality of how we engage every moment matters. It's not just as if our life depended on it. It matters more than life and death because it will determine how we face death. We say ki before ma'ai, but that isn't just a nice martial arts statement. It isn't just a nice sign on the dojo wall. It doesn't just mean the energy of a punch is more important than the punch, or energy is above technique. It's a truth that energy is always shaping form, always. So the energy you put into this moment is shaping the form of this moment, always. The energy that we radiate into the field is shaping what can happen around us, the form that that field will take, always. If I said to you, everything will be all right, the energy doesn't match the words, right? It's off. If I say everything will be all right, different feeling. Same words, different energy. And so it is in everything we do. The energy is going to shape the condition of how we affect other people, what we're putting into the field. So, reflecting on those demons and ourselves as a jiki, what would be some pointers, some that we might have for how we sit in this seishin? Well, first, a few unhelpful things that don't actually work very long. Wondering how long until lunch? How long till this is over? How long till this? How long till that? Not helpful. Thinking, gee, if I move my leg, it won't show on the screen, because the screen cuts off right here, right? I can get away with it. Not helpful. Not actually helpful. Thinking, gee, this is a lot easier than being in person. Why are you trying to make it easy? I would ask myself. Or, I need to pace myself. We're not the pace yourself line of Zen. We're more like the go for broke line of Zen. What's this pacing yourself? But all these thoughts can still arise. They can all still arise. How can we jiki ourselves so that we can not get carried away by them? Because how we meet every moment matters. So what is the ki of sitting Keishin? I'd say sit as if you're in the front of the train. I mean, right on the cow catcher. And you're going to be the first line of defense. Sit as if you're on the edge of a battlefield, ready to go in anytime. Sit as if your concentration contributes to everyone's concentration, as it does. Sit as if your posture and breathing helps everyone's posture and breathing, because it does. Sit if we collectively could wipe out evil forces, divisiveness, violence, and trouble, and plant in its place compassion and universal love. Sit as if that were happening. Sit as if that were possible. Sit as boundaryless love. Boundaryless love. Sit as absolute emptiness. Sit as absolute stillness. Absolute stillness in which all movement, including messy movement, arises. Throw everything I've said away. Throw away everything. Sit that way. So let this time spring to life through you and through how you engage these moments. I think about this pivotal point in human history. And how you chose to be here at this time. We all did. Maybe not the same way we chose the clothes we're wearing, but in a sense of universal choice. You signed up for this. You've trained your life for this. Let's strengthen one another in this time, that we can have the internal change that creates the collective change and is the change that matters.